Hello everyone, Rob Guest from football.london here and welcome to the latest episode of Gold and Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me as ever, it's Alistair Gold. Good weekend?
It was a good weekend, most definitely. Really positive trip to Manchester. A long day, but worth the train journey in the early morning and getting back late at night, definitely. Kind of feels like things have, maybe it's just a social media world, but kind of feels a little bit since things have gone a bit like, again, but that's mainly Tottenham and the transfer window. But we get to talk about all of it now in this podcast, if we can squeeze it all in.
Yeah, let's start with the win in Manchester, 2-0. A very good day for Tottenham. I don't think a lot would have had Spurs down to get that result, but Brennan Johnson and Palhinha on the score sheet. The games have been extremely entertaining at the Etihad in recent years. We've had the 3-2 win, the 3-3, the Champions League game back in 2019 as well, 4-0 last year, 2-0 now. I mean, Spurs probably want to play there every week.
It's weird, isn't it? I still go there utterly fearing absolute tonking. Yet history suggests I probably shouldn't. Even like ones where they've lost before, there's been some where was it Emerson scored? They were 2-2 up, 2-2 at half time. I'm sorry, 2-0 at half time.
The 4-2 game, wasn't it? 2-0
Yeah,
at half time, and City just turned it around very quickly.
yeah. Even that, it wasn't like a first half demolition, but yeah, like you say, we just seem Tottenham to be the bogey team for Man City for one reason or another. Something about the way we play is like kryptonite to Pep Guardiola and his team. It just causes them all manner of problems. And they were excellent on Saturday. They're really, really good. I think first 20, 25 minutes or so, I don't really want to go as far as either to ride a storm, but definitely City were the better team. And there was a couple of saves to make for Vicario as well. A couple of good ones from Marmouche. And yeah, I think at that point you could say, ooh, if they score now, it's probably a deserved one. But I would say from the moment Spurs scored that goal through Brennan Johnson, I'd say the whole game complexion changed. I thought City suddenly became very ineffective. I think that was mainly because of Spurs defending and the way they just stopped them. But also, I felt like Spurs probably looked like the team that were going to increase their lead more than, and obviously they did. But yeah, a really good performance tactically, what we want to see, and I think most importantly, three very different competitive games, very different tactical performances as well, which bodes well for the season.
Yeah, definitely. In last week's podcast, we were discussing the formation we'd probably go for at City. Either Thomas Frank listened to the podcast and thought we don't know what we're on about, or he didn't. But we both said back three, wing backs, but that just wasn't the case. It was exactly the same setup as the previous week, the opening day of the season against Burnley.
Yeah, but obviously with the key difference of some of those personnel changing, probably namely bringing in Palhinha and Bentancur to be that base at the bottom of the kind of midfield. And yeah, maybe he just thought, oh, like Golden Guest talk rubbish. There's nothing I want to do with that. He was asked on the Friday ahead of the game if he was thinking of the back three. And he was like, yeah, I'm thinking of the back three, thinking of the back four and all this sort of stuff. And I think as soon as the team came out, everyone, or not everyone, but certainly a large portion of social media reacted in like, we're doomed kind of thing. But to be fair, it was just really well executed. And the pressing was fantastic. The pressing was so good. Obviously, pressing made the second goal, but it's just a real key part of Thomas Frank. And I think that's the important thing to remember is that yes, he's very adaptable. Yes, we'll see games where it's completely different tactics and very much the opposition and their strengths are a part of the tactics. But I would say that still doesn't take away from the fact that kind of the Thomas Frank Tottenham is still this high kind of energy, aggressive, snarling, pressing Tottenham, which is, you know, anyone who's heard this podcast before, we always kind of say is the best version of Tottenham. So if he can get that on a more consistent basis than previous managers, then he'll be kind of got half the job done for him. Because if you just add a bit of quality on top of that, and I think it was put to him, I think it was Jurgen Klopp said it, that sometimes pressing is the best playmaker because, you know, you win the ball so high up the pitch. And yeah, he was very much like, oh, I should text Jurgen. That's good. I like that. It's very clever kind of thing. And I think it's true. There is an element of if you press high up the pitch, and I should stress, I am not saying they shouldn't sign a playmaker. They need to sign a playmaker, absolutely. But for certain games, the press does win you the ball up the pitch and puts you into dangerous areas. And it's a key part of the Thomas Frank way of playing.
I think you said at the start of the podcast what was key with standing that early pressure, which always happens when you go to the Etihad and play City.
Yeah.
And they did have a couple of good openings. There was that chance for Marmoush from the tight angle where the ball just looked like it was trickling along. The line didn't drop in. And then there was one where Erling Haaland played a beautiful through ball through to Marmoush. Vicario, quick out of his goal, stood up and saved it as well. But if you can, keep City at bay and you can create chances, there's always an opportunity there for you to go on and win the game. And that's exactly what Spurs did. It was a really well worked first goal as well. The long ball from Pedro Porro down the touchline, Pat Matasar getting a brilliant head on the ball, then Richarlison just timing the ball, the run just right, making great strides. Brennan Johnson, as soon as he saw Pat Matasar's header, he was just on his bike straight away running towards the back post, and basically what we saw all of last season, just someone putting the ball across the face of goal and then Brennan Johnson jolly on the spot as ever.
Absolutely. Johnson again, as it were, 2 in 2. He's just this player that has just got this incredible knack of being in the right position at the right time. And that's not luck. It's not kind of people make out that that's all he does. That's a skill. My favourite player growing up was Gary Lineker. Gary Lineker, I think he scored one goal I remember from outside the penalty box. I think he scored against United once, and everyone was like, what? It's like a 30-yard shot. Otherwise, his whole game was based around the fact of being in the right areas at the right time. He wasn't a big hold-up player. He wasn't all that. This is kind of with Brennan Johnson. Yes, there's elements to his game. Of course, as a young player, he's going to have to improve. We know that. But his ability to get into the right areas and just be there to put that finishing touch, I mean, on no kind of grander occasion than in Bilbao. So, yeah, I thought it was a good goal. Great work from Richarlison. Pat Matasar has to be up there with unsung players of the Premier League season so far. He's got to be right up there, as he's just been so consistent in every game he's played under Thomas Frank so far. Well worked goal. I think that's the thing with Porro as well, isn't it? He just he is Spurs playmaker right now. He is that deep bit of quality in the team that can play from far back. There was quite a few lovely crossfield passes he was doing as well on Saturday. Absolutely kind of destroyed City in one moment, really. I know there was a slip in there as well, but to be honest, Spurs were flying. I don't think they would have caught them regardless. And it was the only surprising thing was when the flag went up. I was like, what? And then I think you could see within seconds of the VAR coming online, it's like, yeah, he's onside. So no, a great start. And like I said earlier, I think that was the momentum shifter for the entire game, really.
Yeah, last time Tottenham played at the Etihad and won 4-0, Johnson was on the score sheet, and I can remember the interview James Maddison after the game. He scored twice in that, and he was asked about Brennan Johnson because I think he'd gone on quite a decent run around that period of just scoring goals at the back post, and he was asked about it and basically said it's not a fluke. It is literally a skill. It's an art. He knows to be in the right position at the right time, and he's paying off. And 2 weeks in a row, he's got his goals again. So it's really good to see. Second goal, then, not one Man City will want to look back on too fondly. I absolutely hate playing out from the back. And
I know. I hear you moan about it a lot.
This is the reason for it. What a ridiculous pass to make.
That was when silly area to play in.
Kudus was just straight on him. Someone, was it Sarr? Sarr was on straight on him. You could see from an angle behind the goal, I think there was a pass to Bernardo Silva. He could have made, there was a bit of a gap. But to pass to whichever player who was about 10 yards out, central area, Sarr on him straight away, I just give up, honestly.
Gonzalez? I think it might have been Gonzalez. It was, yeah. No, I agree with you. I do think it has its uses. I think there's times when you can beat a press by using it, but you've got to be so good with your passing and you've got to select the right pass.
But how many times do you see a team go from their own goal line to the opposition box in one goal.
True, or maybe it's only highlighted if it results in a goal, whereas maybe we see the mistakes more often because they're so glaring. Maybe. But yes, I mean, I prefer to focus on the fact that the Spurs pressed really well, but I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, Sarr getting a foot in, Richarlison getting there. Trafford, I thought, was almost going to make up for it when he kind of got a hand to it. But yep, João Palhinha. That's a very big first goal for the club, wasn't it?
It was, and probably what his performances have deserved so far
Yeah.
when he's been in the Tottenham shirt. He was really good against PSG, and I think the same goes for Saturday. Loan signing as well. What a deal to bring him to the club, because I mean we saw during his 2 years at Fulham just how good he is, and just didn't really work out for him Bayern Munich. But it looks like he's already building a really good partnership with Rodrigo Bentancur in the middle of the pitch. He's someone who's always going to get his foot in, break up play, just get on the ball and get it moving forward, and he can, add goals to his name as well, and in the right position to score on Saturday. I thought it was good work from Richarlison, just a smart turn to try and, create a yard of space for himself. But Trafford got a hand to it, and then Palhinha's just in the right spot to put it into the back of the net.
Early prediction. Two competitive starts in. Will Spurs sign him permanently, João Palhinha? I'm going to get you in your time machine.
I don't know, to be honest. I probably personally would. But let's see what happens later down the line. Is it just an age thing? Could they look at and go, nah, not usually our transfer approach. We want to look for someone a bit younger.
Maybe.
But Spurs need experience in there.
That's my point. That's exactly what I was about to say. I think ordinarily it'd be the kind of deal that Tottenham would run away from. It's like he'll be, 31 by that point. But I would suggest that if he keeps himself in a good physical condition this season and has an impact, of course, it's very early days, I know that, but this is all very hypothetical. If he maintains this level in the team, I just think it's a no-brainer to have an experienced head in that team, because you've lost Sonny, probably going to lose Ben Davis maybe next summer at the latest, if he doesn't still go by the end of this window. So you're kind of those players. Will there be anyone 30 or over? I don't think they will, with it. So have I missed anyone? I think they're the only two that were over 30, weren't they?
No, there's a lot mid-20s, a couple heading towards late 20s. I think that's probably about right, yeah.
I think so. So I don't think it's a bad thing for a team to have an elder kind of statesman, as it were. Notice that when he was in the dugout, how much kind of was it PSG, wasn't it? Yeah. When he was kind of doing lots of real kind of experienced player stuff and talking to players and trying to shout across at them instructions and stuff. And I think for the sake of, was it about 27 million? I think it wasn't like, in terms of modern day transfer fees, a big thing. I think it's one they really have to look. I have no doubt that Tottenham will try to renegotiate, as they always do or seem to do, with options. But I think if he can continue this momentum, and yes, it's very early days, I think it would be mad not to have an older figure, especially when you're trying to build a really young team. You can't just have young players. You have to have experience in the middle. But yeah, really promising start from him so far. I asked Thomas Frank after the game about him, and I could tell he wasn't too keen to go in on individuals because it was a very good team performance. But he said, yeah, wow, he was very good. And the only thing he would say as well is that he's nowhere near the fitness level that I want him to be yet. And he'll get there, because, he's barely played in football for the last 5 months or so, has he, in terms of compared to other people. And the Club World Cup, he only played half an hour or so, 45 minutes. So, yeah, I get that. And it's quite a scary thought, I'd imagine, for opposition teams. If if he's not full fitness and sharpness yet, what's he going to be like? He's going to be an absolute kind of monster in that midfield. So, yeah, hopefully long may it continue. And I like the partnership with Bentancur. I'm intrigued to see what they do going forward in terms of Sarr's been brilliant, but if you have a number 10, is it going to be for certain games you only have one of Bentancur or Palhinha, or will there be certain games where Bentancur is pushed forward because we know he can get into the box late and stuff like that? What does it mean for Sarr? It's all good problems to have if you bring in a number 10 to kind of rotate with them.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't like Andrew's first season at the club where it was, 41, 42 games or something like that, because they went out of the cup, Carabao Cup, first time of asking FA Cup, 2 games in. So there's 8 Champions League games coming up. Champions League draw on Thursday. Carabao Cup, hopefully a decent run in that competition.
So
So what?
48, isn't it? More minimum at least.
Yeah, I mean, we saw last season that you need a big squad just because of all those injuries. And there's going to be games where we're going to see quite a bit of rotation. I mean, I didn't expect both Palhinha and Bentancur to be on the bench against Burnley.
Yeah.
But Frank did rotate, and this is the good thing with Thomas Frank. Different formations for different games, different setups. So we're going to see a bit of changing here and there. I mean, we've not seen a lot of Lucas Bergwall so far, really, in the 3 games. But you just need depth in that squad, and that's what Spurs do have at the moment in certain areas.
I was going to say in certain areas, definitely.
Certain areas, but they still need a few more players before next Monday's transfer deadline.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a whole other subject. We're definitely going to get onto that. Don't worry, people. That is certainly a subject we're going to cover at as much length as we possibly can, because that is kind of like it's such a shame that everything was going so well on the pitch. It started really brightly, and I know this was kind of how it played out in 2023 as well, with Angie's first 10 games or so. But it kind of feels like everything on the pitch is absolutely fine, but it's off the pitch. It's like, come on, like catch up almost in a way. But yeah, I really enjoyed watching the way that Thomas Frank manages this side. It's been really interesting. Obviously, from a kind of a relationship building in terms of with him as well, that's been interesting. I think we're starting to get there. I think some of the kind of regular journalists, especially the couple of us that went on the tour and stuff, I think there's a little bit of a, and I know people kind of make light of this in a way, but I think if you can start to build a little bit of a rapport with the manager, we're just going to get more out of him, and that's better for the people that kind of listen or read the press conferences and stuff. And I think we're starting to get there with him. But mainly, the most fascinating thing for me is watching how he manages everything from the dugout. Because look, Ange Postecoglou had a very different style. We know this. He admitted it himself. He was a guy that wanted to observe a game. He didn't want to really shout and get emotional in it. He kind of said it was like watching a movie, wasn't it? He wanted to be able to exactly see how it was, and he could make the correct decisions. I know you don't make decisions in a movie, but something like that. And that for the outside world looked a bit naff at times. You know, he would be standing there, hands in his pocket. Sometimes the photographers would catch him doing, and I think fans don't like that, especially if something's not going right. They don't want to see a manager standing there looking like he doesn't know what to do. That's kind of the perception of it. Whereas I would often say to people in those scenarios, look at Antonio Conte. Antonio Conte would throw himself around. He would shout so much at players that those players would start to switch off, and they weren't actually listening to him. He was the other extreme. Whereas I actually think what Thomas Frank does is really interesting. It's right in the middle of all of this, is that he wants to make sure that his voice is not the only voice in the dugout. And I was watching that because the Etihad press box is not too far from the dugouts. It's quite a nice angle. So you could see that Matty Wells, for instance, was a big presence in the technical area, doing a lot of, because it was quite a defensively structured performance. He was doing a lot of talking to the defence and telling them what they needed to, praising them for stuff. And I noticed there was one point, Thomas Frank, or a couple of points, Thomas Frank said to the other coaches, there was Andreas Georgeson, the set piece coach. He was trying to get him up and talking to them about various stuff. He's also a general coach too. And Fabian Otta, the goalkeeping coach, he was saying, like, get up, this is your department. I want you to talk to Vicario and stuff like that. And I found that really fascinating, because having just said that about Conte and the way that players maybe would switch off if they just kept hearing him go on and on and on, to have 3-4 different voices constantly come in at you is such a more kind of, was it for the senses? It's a good thing, isn't it? It's constantly hearing different voices, different opinions, different thoughts, but yet all kind of collaborating in the one direction. So yeah, I thought that was really fascinating. And in front of us as well in the press box, we had the Spurs analysts as well, and it was very interesting. I was trying to look over their shoulder without gazing too much at what they were doing on their laptops, because I thought that was probably crossing a line. But just kind of getting a sense what they were doing was really interesting, because I think they've got the new chap, is it Joe Newton, who came across from Brentford, who, if you've not watched it, there's like a 24 hours in the day of Thomas Frank, I think Sky did. And there's a really interesting section on that with Joe Newton, how he's become his eyes and ears and everything. And I was just kind of watching them, and apparently what they do is the bank of analysts are all constantly in contact with Matt Wells, Justin Cochran, and Andreas Georgian throughout the game. The three of them, they're the ones that they relay everything they can see from up above, as it were, and what needs to change, what isn't working, what's working well if they continue doing it. But also, apparently, Andreas Georgian has his own set piece analyst up in the stands as well, that he has his own direct line to, which I thought was really fascinating as well. So he can see how, let's say, marking from corners or free kicks isn't quite working. It needs to be a little tweak because they can see it from a better vantage point. So there's all little stuff like that you kind of think you're sat in the press box watching the game, but actually there's all this whole other thing going on, this subplot that you can kind of watch and learn from. And just really interesting thing. Might have missed a couple of things that happened in the game. I was asking people like, who put that ball across? Who did that? But ultimately, I think I kind of got a better picture of how Thomas Frank works, which hopefully serves us in the long term.
Yeah. Second half, then Spurs not really under too much pressure in terms of chances for City. I mean, there was one at the end of the first half, Haaland with the header, which went over from about 6 yards out. But just trying to think of the chances City created in the second half. And I mean, Mickey van der Ven put in a really good tackle in his own box towards the end of the game.
Yeah.
But it's probably Spurs who had the better chances. There was that right at the end, Trafford making a really good save low down from Solanke, and then Odegaard having a header pushed wide as well.
Charleston had about 3 headers that he sent over.
Yeah, quite a few looping headers at the back post, wasn't it? It's not usually the case at City when you're playing them. You're thinking you just got to be constantly under pressure, but
Spurs had 12 shots. 12 shots to City's 10.
Okay. Yeah. So moving on to the post-match press conference then, what did Thomas Frank say? I mean, you've already touched upon what you mentioned about Jurgen Klopp and João Palhinha and that as well.
Yeah, just very proud of the players. Exactly what you kind of expect him to say. Very much kind of echoed what we've said thus far, really, that first 35 minutes, I think he said he felt it was an even game, but City probably just on top. And then he said, same as we did, that the goal changed everything. And he felt that the second half performance was just absolutely brilliant from the team in the way that the kind of how strong the structure was. And he loved the mindset that they kept going for a third goal rather than just sitting back and trying to claim those 3 points, which is something. This is the thing, isn't it? I do feel like there will be remnants of the Ange Postecoglou era that will feed into this one. And I think to be fair, Thomas Frank's already said that. He feels like, especially the close-knit nature of the group has fed into his one. And I think some of the aspects of trying to be brave will feed into his, because he's got a similar philosophy in that respect. So I think he will benefit from those little bits and pieces. And yeah, he was just saying, I think he's right, that every player was excellent. And that was why I didn't really want to pick anyone out. And I'd agree with it. I was trying to think back. Like Vicario, you could say maybe a couple of iffy short kicks in the second half, but he made those 2 big saves in the first half, which pretty much were the foundations of the whole win. I thought Romero was really good as well. I thought, that's the captain of Tottenham Hotspur now. And I think that was another one of those big kind of captain performances from him. Van der Ven, like you say, maybe could have given away a penalty. I think he was perhaps a little bit lucky with that. I've forgotten whose foot he stood on now. Who was it? I had written it down somewhere. He just caught someone's foot at one point. And played well. Oh, Oscar Bob. I'd written it down. I knew I had somewhere. That probably could have been a penalty. But then that's probably balanced out by the fact that Kudus, when running through, was absolutely destroyed by James Trafford. I've never seen such a kind of obvious foul. I don't even think he actually got the ball with. I think the ball, when he got it, kind of came off an arm or something. He just had his foot up high. It could have been horrendous what could have happened from that challenge. But I think they were focused so much on Porro being fouled and it ended up just being outside the box that they didn't really go back and look at that on Kudus. So, yeah, I'd say that all balanced up. And Guardiola in his press conference very much didn't have any complaints about the game, about the scoreline, anything. He felt that his team did a lot of good things in terms of their running, but didn't do the basics well. and the Spurs did. And yeah, a really good performance, a good day for the team, and yeah, loads of little kind of individual highlights. I think about. I thought the midfield three were excellent. All three attackers contributed in different ways, and both fullbacks. I thought Jed Spence again. Did you see his Instagram post after the game?
Nah, I didn't.
I feel
No.
like I think I wrote it down somewhere. Let's have a look. It was something like "Bring me your favorite winger" or something. It was classic, kind of the way he is right now. Well, the way he always is. He's just got that. That's it. Yeah, bring me your favorite winger, because he's taken out some big wingers. If you think about like last season as well, there was one of the games. Was it the home game in the League Cup where he kind of nullified Salah for quite a long time in that? I know there was other games where he didn't, but and Saka as well. He's had a couple of good kind of games against him, and in this game as well, he played really well. Do you think he's got any chance of an England call up, Jed?
You'd like to think so, because the squad's been named, I think, Thursday or towards the end of this week. And I mean, I think we said it back in March. Really, he should be in the running for the squad at left back.
Just to look at him, even look at him in the squad environment.
Yeah, well, Tuchel so far seems to have preferred to have gone with the experienced players who've been in and around the squad before, even though, they maybe not have been playing, the likes of Kyle Walker, Jordan Henderson at some point, but got less than a year to go to the World Cup now. So if anyone's going to force the way in, then he needs to be having a look at them. And I mean, looking at left back, Miles Lewis-Skelly, he's been playing, I think, the past few England games, but I don't think he started for Arsenal this season. In the Premier League, it's been Calafiori at left back. So left back's been a bit of a problem issue, I think, for England recently. 100% for me, he should be, at least considered for the squad. I think he should be in there, really.
Being that versatile, especially if you're going to a World Cup. I know that's way in the future, but if you can have a player that can fill in on either side as a fullback, it's an immediate plus to you. It's like having a bonus player attached to him, kind of in a way. So yeah, I think he deserves it. I think he's done incredibly well. It's going to be a hell of a battle with Udogie, who's now back in training. Again, a good thing. This is why we want Spurs to have this all across the pitch, because having those two battling it out, and also as the season goes on, Spence might push Porro as well. Still not entirely sure he's as good on the right as he is on the left, which I know is weird, bearing in mind he's naturally a right back. But I just feel there's something about playing on the left that suits him really well. It may be the fact that he can come inside a bit, I don't know. But yeah, I'm fascinated to see the battle between those two, because I think Udogie has been a bit of an unsung player over the seasons, maybe because of the injuries, because he's kind of missed out on chunks of the season. But I think, bearing in mind, he's only 22, isn't he, still, Udogie? I don't know whether he's getting called up by Italy. I think we're waiting to find out. I think their squad comes out on Friday. There were some suggestions he might be, then some kind of suggestions in Italy that he might not be in this one because he hasn't played any games yet. But yeah, I think that's going to be a hell of a battle, and that is what Tottenham needs. Competition is a good thing. Tottenham Hotspur, sign some players.
Halfway through the podcast now, so it's time to talk about the benefits of using NordVPN.
Well, if any of those in the recruitment staff might be heading abroad to scout players, do some talks, speak to clubs about certain transfers they might want doing, they could do a lot worse than using NordVPN when they're on their travels, in order to be able to access everything they want from back home. They might want to watch sporting events, TV shows. I know we want them to focus on the transfers and everything, but they might have a bit of downtime. They might want to watch something from back home on one of their streaming apps or something. Even if they're abroad, they will be able to access them just by switching their device to thinking it's back in the UK. And likewise, you can do completely the opposite. If you want to access stuff from abroad, you can make your device think it is anywhere else in the world, pretty much. And that might help you, who knows, access, I don't know, concert tickets, flights, hotel bookings, just streaming services from abroad. You might be able to watch something from abroad that you wouldn't normally. Could be a TV show, it could be a sporting event, could be anything, but you could do it from back home just by switching the device to thinking it's abroad. NordVPN also helps you protect your private data like bank details, passwords, and online identity when you're using Wi-Fi. And yeah, it protects your data while traveling, and also protects you just pretty much wherever you are in the world, which is a massive thing as well. It's got this NordVPN threat protection feature, which protects you from viruses, malicious malware, and phishing sites as well. And of course, you'll always hear me say it is the fastest VPN in the world, which means there's no buffering, no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. You also get premium cybersecurity for the price of a cup of price of a cup of coffee per month. I know what I'm saying, honest. And you can also use one NordVPN account up to 10 different devices. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goldguest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. And there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link, in case you missed it there, is in the podcast episode description box.
So let's get on to transfers then, because that's what all Tottenham fans want to talk about right now. And I think you know that from your mentions on Twitter or X at the moment. So we're now less than a week away from deadline day. That's 7 p.m. on Monday, September the 1st. Incomings then. Spurs need a new number 10, a new winger, and then a senior centre-back. Will they get them all?
Wow. They should have, is what I would say. They absolutely should have. There is no reason to finish this window not having roughly what they wanted going into it. And yeah, I don't think we've spoken about this since, because I don't think there would have been a pod. Yeah, we didn't do a pod before Friday's press conference, did we? I asked Thomas Frank on Friday. I said, just from the outside, Thomas, it looks like you've signed 2 very good players in Mohamed Kudus. Sorry, 2 new faces in Mohamed Kudus and João Palhinha. Yet you've sold Son Heung-min and you have lost James Maddison for the bulk of the season to injury. So from the outside, is your squad any different in terms of kind of size to what it was when you started the one you inherited before the window? And you can see him, he kind of went, oh, and he was like, I think he had to admit it. He said, well, yeah, if it's 2 in, 2 out, it's a very similar squad in that respect. I think you could argue it's probably in certain areas a better suited squad because of Palhinha, but then also you've kind of the contrast is you've lost the playmaking ability of Maddison and Kulusevski right now, so it's kind of lost it in that area. But yeah, if the manager is saying that the squad he now has is similar to the one he started the window with, the window has not worked. It's kind of there, and it's just there in black and white. You don't have to add any more to it, but we will, because they have to get these deals done. The 10 and the winger are the priority. Centre-back, I think they could probably fudge through till January if they have to. I think there's probably enough there, although I know he wants to play a back 3 when the situation requires it, and that becomes problematic. I think
if that was the case in terms of centre-back, would you be keeping Luka Vuskovic?
Exactly what I was about to say. I wonder whether we won't see Vuskovic going anywhere until they've got that kind of person through the door. Because it seems like, we've mentioned before, there's a load of clubs after him, but Hamburg seem to be one that keep consistently being there or thereabouts. And obviously the link with his brother being there as well. There's also Kota Takai to come back. It seems like he's doing some work outside now, which is a good thing. That's normally the step kind of before they start doing training with the team or with the ball and all that sort of stuff. I was just looking because every time there's a Spurs notification, you're like, what? But it's just Palhinha being up for must be that weekly award that they have. When did the Player of the Month now become Player of the Week? It's a new thing, isn't it?
This is a new thing. Player of the Month, yeah. You usually get nominations early September for it.
Yeah, but Player of the Week, I mean, we'll go Player of the 48 hours. It's just leave it the month. That was fine. Anyway, yeah. So they need to get these players through the door. I think they'll get at least 2 out of the 3 through the door. The key will be how high up their list were these players? I think that's going to be the big thing about it, because obviously we know some of those top targets have not been acquired. Morgan Gibbs-White being the biggest one. He was the number 10 that they really wanted. Then they switched to Eze, and that obviously had its horrendous ending. And yeah, we'll see. But there's still some good names out there, some good players out there. I mean, I'll throw the question back to you, as you so kindly chucked it straight and lobbed it at me like a grenade to handle. So I'm going to throw it back at you. Do you think they'll get what is required? And if they do you think they'll panic buy?
I think they'll end up panic buying. I think it'll be a bit desperation the last few days of the window, because you look at the players they missed out on. Morgan Gibbs-White, Eze, potential game changers. Are you getting better players than them?
That's it.
In the window. And I did a piece at the weekend. Andrew's final press conference as Tottenham manager, the Brighton game, was talking about the need to bring in experience this summer, players with Champions League experience, etc. This is what Spurs need, not young players like Lucas Bergvall, Archie Gray last year. Yeah, they've developed a lot of the past year, but you need experienced players in there. João Palhinha, perfect example.
Yeah.
This is what Spurs need. I just feel that they probably won't get the players they want in certain positions, say the number 10, and they will just buy a young kid.
That's my issue. That is my issue. It's almost like, if we're going to have to panic buy, let's do one that's low risk, because they might be good in the future. And if they're not, we could probably still sell them for a reasonable value. And I don't like that way of operating. I don't. It's almost, and I know it would enrage the fans completely, and I get that. But you're almost better off, like Thomas Frank has said, if you can't get the kind of player you want, don't sign anyone. It's like almost, I mean, I know they've sent 1 million of them out on loan, but that's what the academy's for. At least I'd rather use someone from your academy than panic buy someone that's not going to be of any real use to you. I mean, we've seen it at Spurs. We've seen some signings that have no interest in the manager. I will always go back to Arnaut Danjuma, because the poor guy was brought in to a manager who had no real need for him, admitted openly that he didn't even fit his system. And it was just like, yeah, he'll do. Snatched him off of your lot at the last minute for no real reason either. But yeah. So various positions. I mean, we can talk about centre back. Obviously, there's been all the stuff about Piero. Is it Hincapi? Is that how you pronounce it? Hincapi. I should stress on this, because this has been the one that has had the most social media noise around for different reasons. So let me just first off say, everyone has different information. Everyone speaks to different contacts. That's how this all works. So everyone kind of has slightly different angles on things. I spoke to a few different people on this. So kind of, as people know, the way we work here is what we always try to do is to double source stuff. So my take on this with Hincapi is a player that we know Spurs have liked for quite a while. Fabio Paratici was a fan of his. I think they were looking at potentially bringing him in years back when he was I know he's only 23 now, but I think they were looking at him like early 20s, if that's not still early 20s. And yeah, that was something that never really came to pass. Then earlier this summer, from what I understand, they did have talks. They held discussions with Leverkusen about him, about a potential transfer. This was earlier this summer. And just a move for the player didn't proceed from that point. So I've seen people on social media saying that they had no interest in him. I did not say anything like that. What I would always say is, rather than reading a line of something put on Twitter, please read the full article. It's always quite helpful. You'll see the article, the big piece I did on transfers yesterday. So Spurs held discussions early in the summer about a potential transfer for him. How far that got, it's up to different people to kind of take whatever they want from that. But from what I understand, it was earlier in the summer, and it didn't proceed. Whether that is because they got a sense the player didn't want to come, or they got a sense that the value wasn't what they wanted to pay, don't know. I just know that it didn't progress from that point. And certainly people within Spurs claim that since that point early in the summer, there's been no active interest or contact with Leverkusen. Again, everyone will have their own different information on that. That's absolutely fine. That's all how this world works. The whole journalism, football reporting world works. So yes, either way, it doesn't look like he'll be a player that will heading through the Tottenham door, barring any late massive U-turn in developments with him. I would wonder myself, looking at it from a just a personal opinion point of view, whether you would spend £60 million on another centre back. I think it is an area where I can see they need someone. I get that, but would you spend big money on another centre back when you've got? I mean, Dragishin, you'd think will be starting to be integrated in the coming, weeks, months, whatever it is. You've got Dancer, of course. You've got Romero, you've got Van der Ven, you've got Ben Davies can play there as well. Coach Takai, like I said, will be kind of in and around learning and developing. Vuskovic obviously got to decide. Ashley Phillips, Alfie Dorrington out on loan as well. It's an area of the club there is a lot of players in. So I just wonder whether, do you splash 60 million on a centre back? I guess it depends if you think they're going to become someone that is going to push out a Romero and a Van der Ven, maybe. But I mean, what do you think?
No, waste of money. Especially when you got like Luka Vuskovic, Kota Sakai, players there. You could be spending 60 million on a player, left-sided centre back, and is he going to start ahead of Mickey Van der Ven? No.
I think the argument would be that Van der Ven and Romero, maybe availability-wise, are not going to be there as much.
Oh, I totally understand that, but I think for me, just if you're spending that amount of money, is it maybe something to appease the fans? Just because they've not then spent that money in other positions?
I get what you mean. I personally, yes, would like them to spend the money elsewhere, the big money. Like you said earlier, senior centre-back. I wouldn't mind them bringing in even if it's a loan deal on the centre-back thing, just to tide them over this season while Vuskovic and Takai are developing and growing. I think that would be a great idea. But yeah, I get that. So that's a defence. Let's move into the midfield and that number 10 position. We know about the misses. We know about the ones that didn't happen. The Morgan Gibbs White, and we saw that interview he did in the week as well, which was, I just felt for his family. I did. I felt that looked horrendous what they were going through with his fiance's stress and having a baby. Thankfully, the baby's come along and all's well. But that was it was an interesting interview, I think is the best way to put it. But so elsewhere in the number 10 role, I mean, there's a fair few options still out there. There's been a lot of talk about Nico Paz, obviously, the very talented young Como player. I say Como because he is just about, but I kind of feel like he's almost a Real Madrid player at this point still, because of the way that they have this deal where it's like an amazing deal where they have a buyback for, I think it's £8.7 million. I think it's maybe next year, and they also own 50% of him, Real Madrid. So we've talked that people are, making him like a potential €70 million player. Why would Real Madrid just go, no, wait around, lad, we'll sign you for 8.7 million next summer? And also, he seems desperate to want to make it at Real Madrid, as most players in the world would want to do. So I think there's always been this sense within Spurs that a move was always going to be a bit of a non-starter. I know there's been, again, reports of a potential bid, but certainly the Como president, Mirwan Suwaso, came out, I think it was yesterday, and said it's not true that we rejected a proposal, as in from Tottenham. Nobody makes an offer knowing that we must forward it to Real Madrid, who can match it. And at some point, we feared Nico Paz would return to Real Madrid. He was raised in their academy and dreams of playing at the Bernabeu one day. So I think that's pretty clear, really. It's like it's there and done. And who else we got? Morgan Rogers, player that Spurs are among the many Premier League clubs to admire. He's a terrific kind of young player as well. But I think from everything I've heard, suggestions of any move for him being successful have been kind of played down, which is a shame because I do think he's a very good young player. Who else has been in number 10? Oh, Bilal El Kanous at Leicester. Haven't really heard too much on that. Does he fall into that bracket of what you were saying about potential panic buy for a younger player?
Well, yeah, because he looks to be Eze's replacement at Crystal Palace. So I'd probably say if you wanted El Kanous, you go out and buy him straight away.
Yeah.
And this is before Gibbs White, is whoever else. I think Paz for me also probably falls into that category for 20-year-old player.
I think the only thing I'd say on him is I think he's maybe ready to make that step. I think he is. I know he's only played 42 games or so, and a lot of this is based on watching some of the highlights of him the other night when he was incredible. I just wonder whether he's a bit Savinho-esque in terms of, is he ready now to explode, as it were?
But the thing is, then how long does it take some players to adapt to the Premier League? I mean,
yeah, true.
Bentancur, Kulusevski, straight away on it when they came from Juventus. Others doesn't always happen like that. And
You're saying there's still a chance with Brian Hill?
Got less than a year to find out now, unless Spurs are going to extend his contract. Well, I mean, he could be the new left winger, Son's replacement after all.
Oh my word! Can you imagine the meltdown? That would be like a Spurs volcano going off, wouldn't it? I'll put a name to you very quickly.
Timo Werner.
No, not Timo Werner. That would be an even bigger volcano. Lucas Paqueta at West Ham.
Yes, 100%. But I mean, you can understand why he'd want out of West Ham at the moment, given their start to the season.
Yeah, it's not good.
But just imagine the meltdown in East London if they sell him after selling Kudus to a big rival as well.
Yeah. I mean, they would go down essentially, wouldn't they? If you lose two of your three key attacking players.
You might as well go for Bowen as well, make it a hat-trick.
I like Bowen. I've always liked Bowen.
Yeah. I think Paqueta would be a really good signing. Whether or not it's feasible, I'm not sure. Just because West Ham have already sold Kudus to Spurs, their current predicament, I can't really see that.
Have they still got financial issues, West Ham?
I don't know.
I haven't, since the Kudus thing, I haven't heard too much about it. But
well, that's a decent chunk of money for Kudus anyway, 55 million.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the midfield, and that's going to be very interesting to see how they fix that. And from what I understand, I think there's a couple of other number 10s that we're not aware of yet that haven't reached the public domain, that are ones that they have on their list. Because it's like
Magnus Akliouche as well at Monaco.
Is he more of a winger? I kind of have been looking into him in the last couple of days. I feel like he plays mainly on the right for them.
Yeah, I think he does, but he can play centrally as well. And he's someone who does have Champions League experience. Played 10 games for them last year. I think scored against Barcelona and someone else as well. So he'd tick that box. But yeah, there's been a number of names linked with Spurs.
Yeah, all I was going to say is he's kind of another one I would put on. I know he's a bit older. He's 23, I think. I would put in that category of feels like he's ready to become a star. That's what everyone seems to be saying. But again, you're absolutely right. He could come to the Premier League and he could struggle a little bit to adapt. And Spurs, let's be honest, their purchases from the French league haven't always gone so well. I'm not looking at you, Tongi. Not you.
Clinton NG as well.
Clinton NG. Wow, there's a name from the past. Obviously, looking at the kind of more attacking positions. Oh, what I was about to say is it's kind of like this three-pronged approach, isn't it, now? Because you've got Johan Langer, you've got Fabio Paratici as the consultant there with all his contacts. You've got head of scouting Rob McKenzie as well. There's kind of this three-pronged recruitment thing, which hopefully brings someone in. I know we're now down to 6 days left of the window. And the attacking slots, obviously, Savinho is going to be one of the main ones kind of people look to. Spurs still seem intent on trying to make that happen. My fear is whether City really need it to. I think that's the problem with it. I think we've always said this is why would you let him go, especially if you can't get a replacement? And all the talk from Spain seems to be that Rodrigo might be staying there. What do you think on Savinho?
I think it'd be a decent signing, but not for the figures mentioned. If City are wanting, 67 million? That's an awful lot of money for him. For someone who's got a year's worth of Premier League experience under the belt,
I'd pay. I think he's class.
Would you?
I just think he's terrific. I think he's going to be so good.
He reminds me so much of Mahrez. I think everyone said that as well.
Okay, yeah, I see that. I see that.
26, left foot. I probably would sign him, but not for the figure mentioned. I think you need to drive that down as much as possible.
Good
Because
season at
City,
Girona as well, didn't he?
yeah, but City signed him for what, 31 or 30 million?
Yeah.
Has his value increased by 37 million in a year?
I think for a 20-year-old at that time in the Premier League, getting into double figures in assists, I know well, it's difficult. The transfer market is so swollen, isn't it? The prices they are so ridiculous. I would say he's definitely shown that he can play in the Premier League. Whether that's another doubling the price tag kind of showing, I don't know. But I just think with him, he's a player for the now, but also could be remarkable. And I think maybe that's also a fear at City, another Cole Palmer, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's been mentioned. I think, don't get me wrong, I think Savinho can be a really good signing for Spurs. For me, it's just the price that's been bandied about. But what I would say, signing him, it's World Cup year. He needs to make an impact.
Yep.
If he's got any chance of making this Brazil squad, so he can work for Spurs, I just think you've got to try and drive that price down as much as possible, which Daniel Levy, of course, will try and do.
If only there was another Brazilian back in the Brazil squad that could be in his ear and try and get that push through.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll have a word to try and get it done. But yeah, just on transfers, I think if you're spending an awful lot of money on an attacking midfielder or a winger, this is Paz, Akliouche, El Kanous, players like this, they have to make an impact given the way Tottenham's transfer window's gone so far. You can't be spending big amounts of money and it's just one for the future. It'll be good next season. It needs to be the here and now with these players.
Well, that was last summer.
Yeah, but missed out on Gibbs White, missed out on Eze. It's not been a good transfer window so far.
It's been a poor transfer window. I don't think there's any getaway. I think you can look at it in two separate parts. I think you can look at the fact that the two new faces they signed, Palhinha and Kudus, great signings. I don't think anyone's got any issues, worries about them. They're Premier League proven. They've fitted in perfectly. They've done so well and they look brilliant. But you have to put that into one side of, have you actually fixed the squad and the starting 11 as well to a degree in this window? And the answer right now is emphatically for me, no. And that's what this window needs to be judged on, especially, I'm sorry to go back to it, but it is so important because of its set up the entire window, is if you're going to come out and say you want to win the Premier League, you want to win the Champions League, as the chairman did, if you're going to say that you want to compete across all four competitions, the least you can then do is provide a squad that's capable of doing that. Otherwise, it makes those comments ridiculous, really. Otherwise, you're kind of setting up a very good coach to fail. Because we know what happens at Tottenham. We know within, October, November, we know that this squad, if it is as it is probably going to have about 6 players left in it. Because it's just the way it happens at Spurs, especially when you've got Champions League, Premier League, Carabao Cup, games every 3 days. They are going to be dropping like flies. And they need that quality to come in and rotate. You said it yourself. It's a Thomas Frank has this way of he'll rotate maybe surprise players that will be like, what? Why have they come out? And that's because he has confidence in the players coming in. But if he doesn't have the confidence in the players coming in, it's all going to start falling apart and he'll overplay the other players and they'll get injured. And we know where that leads. So, yeah, I do think it would end up kind of being neglectful, really, to make such big comments. Change your manager as well with the view that he wasn't competing across all competitions, and then not providing a squad that could compete across all competitions. They're in the Champions League, for goodness sake. We need to make sure that Spurs are not embarrassed in the Champions League. Their starting 11 right now has shown in the opening 3 games they can compete with anyone. But the problem with Spurs is getting that starting 11 out there. I'm sure Thomas Frank is looking at it already and saying, we've already got 2 clean sheets. Spurs only got 6 last season. Yet the difference clearly is, one of the differences, I know obviously it's a more defensive structure in there as well, but just having those players, having Romero and Van der Ven available is such a huge thing. But what do you do if they're not there? That's the key for Tottenham. And it just feels like they haven't answered those questions yet.
Yeah, let's quickly move on to outgoings then, because outgoings need to happen before next Monday. So we're looking at loan maybe for Luka Vuskovic, depending maybe now what happens in terms of whether a senior centre-back comes in or not. Dane Scarlett needs a move. I mean, it's over a month ago now since he was left out of the squad for the preseason tour of Asia. Still remains a Tottenham player. Brian Hill, I don't know if he'll get a move or not just because of this injury. We don't know when exactly he's going to return and be available to be back on the pitch. So why would a club take a chance on him at the
I
moment?
almost asked about him at the press conference. I just think
Yeah.
kind of had more pressing matters than Brian Hill at that point, unfortunately.
So he doesn't have a squad number, does he? So could there be an instance where he's given a squad number?
Another
It might be the case. Might be the case come September, because was it last year? Lloris wasn't in the plans, but all of a sudden came into the squad. Was it last year or year before?
Yeah, I know 23, wasn't it? Yeah. That's an interesting one.
So I mean, that could still happen. I just think this injury may halt things for Brian Hill. Other outgoings, Manor Solomon, who's back in training, just not had a chance to make an impact on the Thomas Frank so far this summer because of injury. And then Yves Bissouma, does he go? You're looking at his contract situation. This is the window to sell him.
Well, certainly suggestions of talks with Galatasaray over him heading there. Seems to be the case that is definitely happening, as in terms of the talks are taking place. Loan with an obligation to buy. I think that has to happen, doesn't it? Let's be honest. It just hasn't worked for Yves Bissouma. We've spoken about it in the past. There's no point dragging them over the hot coals again. Dragging them over the hot coals, is that even the expression? I don't know what I'm saying. But yes, it hasn't worked for Yves Bissouma on the whole. He'll go as a Europa League winner. He played his part in that. And if that deal does get through, I just don't think there's a place for him at Spurs anymore. I think he's unfortunately paved that way himself, unfortunately, because he has kind of been his own biggest opponent in a way. But yeah, I think he goes. Do you need another defensive midfielder? You probably don't, do you? I think there's enough of those there.
I think you can get away with it as it stands at the moment. But
especially if you believe in Archie Gray.
Yeah. Gray, Bergvall, Pat Matassar as well, central midfield, Benteke, Palhinha. There's options there.
Yeah, I think there's enough there. And I'm still not entirely sure where Bergvall's going to end up as a player, whether he will sit in there as a deep-lying Bentancur type player. Have we missed anyone else?
Solomon, then, do you think he will get his move?
It's one of those interesting ones. We just haven't really seen him yet in the Frank team. I would think if they can get a winger in, I can't see how there's any space for him whatsoever, barring a huge injury crisis. And I also think the fact they got him for a free, he represents a big old whack of money. Not a big whack of money, but whatever it is, 10, 12, 15 million. I still think that's what pure profit, as they call it. There is a part of me would like to see how you do. We've just seen so little of him for Spurs. That's the mad thing. But I just don't know. Will he be a player that is a Premier League player, or will he be a player that kind of sits right in that awkward between the Championship and Premier League? What do you think?
Is it only 6 appearances he's made for Spurs?
Probably.
And you're probably looking at 2 years ago since his last Tottenham appearance because of that injury. There's quite clearly a player in there because he did really well at Fulham in the Premier League when he wasn't injured, did really well at Leeds. I think he just needs that chance in the Premier League to show he can be a Premier League player, but injury has so far stopped it for him. And at Spurs, there's a number of players ahead of him in the pecking order. He will drop another place if another winger is signed. So, yeah, I think he might be someone who moves last few days of the window, I'd probably say.
Any surprise ones you think might? There's always a surprise potential. Kind of someone's offered, someone comes in with a big bid, and it makes you realise you could get someone else.
I don't know on that in terms of outgoings.
Yeah.
No.
There's always one. There's always guaranteed one. Don't know really. I mean, it's whether they suddenly make them push for Vissa, let's say, whether there is some will go now. I think it feels like that's kind of set in the, like they've drawn a line in the sand, with Thomas Frank saying that he knocked on his door on the first day of pre-season and said, I want to stay. And he said, perfect, I want you to as well. I really like you. Feels like that. And also, he's Brazil's number 9. That's the thing. When he's fit, it's like, how much better can you get than Brazil's number 9 in a way? There was a part of me that wondered earlier in the early kind of, or the later weeks of pre-season, could there be a late bid for Brennan Johnson from someone perhaps? Was he as set in this team or not? But I think he's kind of in the last couple of games has just shown how important he can be to the Thomas Frank era as well. So
maybe Ben Davis.
Ben Davis could be one. I suppose that probably wouldn't be such a surprise because of his contract situation. But yes, maybe, especially if another centre back does come through the door. But then, do you need him as fullback, left back cover as well? And also, he's probably one of those players that you're not going to chase a fee, surely, for a guy that's been there for 11 years. I suppose you could argue giving him an option for another one did that in a way. So I think in the midfield, whether there'll be a sudden loan for someone like a Gray or a Bergvall, which would just upset everyone, I think, across the board.
I don't think you can afford to do that.
I don't either. Other than that, I think the squad, this is the thing, and maybe this is the issue, is the squad is so set in the ones that he needs and he needs to keep, that all the fringe players are the ones very much like, okay, well, they're probably not going to get into that squad. I should say the Bissouma stuff right now is just discussions at this point. It's been firing off various messages to various people as we were talking. But it could, hopefully for him, I think, get to that conclusion. That'd be good. But yeah, no, I think that's it. I was trying to think of any other potential incomings. I wonder if anyone looks at Lookman, if you'll pardon the pun, looking at Lookman. He's one that's kind of, I feel, has been offered around to quite a few clubs, it feels like, because it's not gone so well at Atalanta, has it? I think they're kind of wanting him out the door there.
Yeah, he's been brilliant there, but I think it looks like it is time for a move for him. Homegrown player as well.
Yeah, it doesn't really. I mean, Premier League, that helps, but we know that doesn't really mean much for the Champions League squad. But we're not going to go into all that. That'll be our exciting thing to deal with when the window closes, how we work out how in the world that all goes. Away from transfers, there was something that kind of snuck out a little bit today, wasn't there?
Yes, kit launch, bit of a soft launch, no promotional videos, nothing on social media at all, which is not usually the case at all when it's a brand new kit. I mean, you see it constantly, don't you? When the new kit's launched, pictures everywhere. I think you had to look onto the club shop, didn't you, to find it?
Well, someone, I think it was Lee, told me that, it's on the Nike store. They've gone early. And then we looked, it was like, oh, no, it's in the Spurs store as well. I was just looking, they still haven't mentioned it on any social media.
Yeah.
Which is weird, really, because they've put other stuff out. Maybe it's contracted stuff they had to put out, but I know it's the backlash, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. To be fair, I think everyone's seen that kit anyway in the league's
images. Nice kit.
Oh, it's brilliant.
I love that old badge. I've never wanted to change badge. I loved it. So I'd love to see that on anything.
Yeah, so that's the crest from early 2000s, then late 90s.
Yeah, going back into it would have been the one they had for the 91 FA Cup as well. Way back, that one. It's a lovely, lovely badge. They had it on a training top, didn't they? A couple of weeks back. Was it?
Yeah, they did.
The Super Cup?
Head of the Super Cup final. Yeah. It's all the Total 90 gear from 20 years ago has come back in, just been reproducing it. And Spurs, although they weren't Nike at the time, it was probably Kappa around mid-noughties. It's really smart.
Umbro, maybe Umbro as well.
Yeah, yellow with some navy on it at the back where the player's name goes. Smart. It's definitely one of the best away kits this season, I think. Yeah, I mean, anything's probably better than the home kit.
I do not like the home kit. Well, this is the thing. We've kind of moaned, Spurs fans, and rightly so, have kind of moaned about a lot of the night kits being a bit generic. But I actually think the black away one and this third kit is probably the nicest kits they've had in years, barring the lovely light blue retro one they had about 3 years ago. Home kit just not doing it for me.
It's not doing it. £85. So if anyone wants to help towards the transfer fund, then buy those yellow shirts.
We're not starting on the whole rant about kits, and was it 125 quid for the player version?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to cost you a lot for your full kit this year.
Were you about to call me a bad name? I don't wear the full kit. I'm very, very careful not to wear full kit if I'm ever playing football or five-a-side or anything. It's only the top. Only the top.
Right, we'll leave that there for today's latest episode of Golden Guest Tottenham. I think we'll be back later in the week, potentially,
I'm sure
ahead
we
of
will.
Saturday's game against Bournemouth. Fingers crossed there'll be some transfer stuff to talk about by then, because otherwise Spurs will be leaving it extremely late in the transfer window. We don't really want that to be the case. So, as ever, just keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goldguest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box.